Welcome to the ManTFup. Welcome to the ManTFup podcast. Remember, before we go any further, Len, like, subscribe, follow, share, absolutely any and everywhere. Spotify, Apple, iHeart, Google, Pandora, Buzzsprout. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And yes, you can always email me, KimmyB at ManTFupTV.com. I'm stealing your thunder, Len.
Damn, I was so ready. I was working it up in my brain.
You'll have another chance at the end
sure.
when we wrap things up.
I could say it anytime I want.
Say your favorite line ever. Please don't. Just randomly. By the way, if you want to email KimmyB. All right, so it's you and me, kid, today. And you know how I love to go for, a good Twitter conversation. Because the internet is just savage. But I would think that one of the main parts of manning the fuck up, right, is, adulting in general is they're
yeah, I think that's a big part of manning,
right? Like it's kind of, I don't even want to say mastering adulting, but at least making an effort.
Yes.
To adult.
Time to stumble. Yes.
Right? Okay.
It's time to stumble.
I like that you said that because, this week on Twitter, something popped up basically kind of like on my search feed, and it was somebody had asked, if your grown child, through no fault of their own, needed to move back in with you for a few months, would you let them? And it doesn't mean that they're freeloading, right? Now, I already know what your answer is.
Well,
to this question, but go ahead and let our incredible.
I guess that depends on, who the parent is. But yeah, I have an open house to my kids. I don't even think I'd charge them rent.
Yeah. So this is what's surprising to me about it, right? Because I was helped for a very long time by my mother, right? Like I physically left home when I went to college. I went from the Boston area to the University of Miami, and I never went back home. But I certainly didn't do that. What do you mean?
Where are you now?
What do you mean?
Where are you now?
Oh, I'm in Hollywood. Wait, I'm still in Florida.
Oh, I thought you lived with your mom now.
She lives with me.
Oh,
there's a difference. Okay. I pay the bills.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Okay.
I foot the bill.
So you're paying it back. You're paying it forward.
For sure. 1,000%. But I'm saying, but I would be remiss if I didn't say I was helped for a very long time. Like when you get into entertainment, it doesn't necessarily pay the bills right out the gate. Mm-hmm. Like we talk often about 20-year overnight successes, and it took me a very long time to be able, but she believed in my dreams, and she had a mother who did the same. And even when I saw that tweet, it made me feel a bunch of ways, because on one hand I feel like you have this older generation, not necessarily baby boomers, but definitely I think like the Gen X generation that's really disappointed in millennials, right? And they feel that millennials are entitled and don't even get on Gen Z. And then I see something like this, which is probably coming from a baby boomer mom or a Gen X mom, mm-hmm. or dad, and they're going to let their child move back into their house. So when we talk about people being entitled, this is one of those things, right? Like when you always have a fallback plan.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it makes it easy for you to, but you see, the fallback plan should make them more motivated to go out and make mistakes, which mm-hmm. it doesn't.
Okay.
See, a lot of these kids fall back into, oh, I don't have to try because I could always just go back home.
Yeah.
But that being said, it is stacked a little bit more against today's youth mm-hmm. than it used to be. I mean, the cost of living is ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, when I was 18 years old, I was bringing home $650 a week in 1983. Wow. Which,
that's good money for some people.
Yes.
Good money for 2022.
Yeah. I mean, in 1983, I was rich, working construction. And that pay scale hasn't changed. Mm-hmm. I mean, these guys make $20 an hour now. Mm-hmm. I was making $24 an hour in 83.
Yeah.
So it's stacked against them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, is it nice for them to have a fallback? Yes. But is it's a crutch more than it is a security blanket for a lot of these kids.
Well, I think that's kind of one of the things that, like I said, I'm forever grateful, but I also looked at it and I was like, what about the people that don't have that? The fact that you can even tweet that is kind of coming at it from a privileged perspective, right? Because you have some people that have no choice but to succeed.
A lot of
right?
people.
Because there is nowhere to go back home to. There isn't a grandmother that owns a house outright, or a parent that owns a house outright, or even, has the ability to say, hey, come on in, like you said, rent free or whatever. Like if you're coming back, or, so that's an incredible place. So I feel like there's a level of gratitude that you have to even be able to think that way. Like, okay, like, because right now, if I fall flat on my face, there's not a whole lot of options for me. Like I said, my mom lives with me. My family dynamic has changed exponentially since I was in college, and that happens, you know what I mean? And that's a whole other conversation. But now it really is on me. And because she did so much for me, I would never, there's no question in my mind about what I'm going to do in order to make sure that my mom is good and that I'm good. You know what I mean? But like, I think about her siblings, like my grandmother, till the day she literally took her last breath, would have done anything for her children. Like my mother's sister has definitely gone home a time or 12. And she was the smartest one in the family. You know what I mean? Like she was the first one to go to college out of my...
Maybe that's why she went home.
No, well, I mean, no, but she just, again, she didn't necessarily do... she went for psychology or whatever and wanted to be a social worker. Well, we all know there's not a whole lot of money in social work, right? And then she was like, oh, wait, so just different things brought her back home, but she always had that. And my grandmother was, and would have taken care of grandkids and all of that. But I just wonder, like, at this point, though, like, because you're the parent, like, is it smarter to say, hey, stay home whether you go to college or not? Because obviously your two youngest are probably going off to college. We've had this conversation.
Yeah. My daughter's like, I'm out of here at 17 and a half. I'm gone.
Yeah. But there's 4 years away at college.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of people aren't graduating and able to actually provide for themselves.
Even if you graduate college, how can you provide for yourself? I mean,
Yeah.
what's an average one-bedroom apartment
That's what I'm saying.
in a secure neighborhood? Forget about good neighborhood.
Definitely.
Just a secured one-bedroom apartment is $1,800, $1,900.
Yeah.
I mean, add a car, that's another $300-$400. Insurance. Your bills are, I think Nick's bills are $3,600 a month.
Yeah.
So how do you come out of it? I mean, there's no jobs that really start at that.
Yeah.
If you start at $50,000 a year, that's $3,600 a month or whatever.
That's why people are going for their masters. You know what I mean? It's like to try to kind of leverage it in their favor a little bit.
It definitely has become a two-person financial society.
Yeah, it's wild. It is. But so from a parent perspective, I guess, with that being said, obviously, I knew your answer. Like, I know you will never tell your children no. And that
comes from my mom. Comes from my mom always.
But that surprised me. I will say that because I know your history growing up. It wasn't like you had the easiest childhood, and you were definitely independent. Like, I know you were running the
but I was more on the wild side. Financially, we didn't really have too many issues that I saw because my mom always provided, we lived in Highland Lakes. Yep. Oh, it's so bougie, whatever. We lived there. I was by no means the wealthiest kid in the neighborhood or even close. I mean, we were lucky to get there. We were lucky, and she did whatever she had to do to keep us there. So growing up, I didn't see that.
Okay.
I just saw that I had what I wanted. I had a new bicycle. I had this. I had that. So my freedom came from no supervision. That's where my out hustle came from. And beyond that, I always wanted more,
For sure.
I started my first business when I was 18. So I always wanted more. I always wanted to do something and create things and move forward. My kid, he's had everything he ever needed. He still wants more, and he leans on us. He does whatever, but he did go out and start his own business, which is kudos to him. This is an experience that you're going to have to get. Going into the job market is the same. Your first job out of college is not going to be the best.
Mine was free. It was an internship.
It's not. It is what it is.
Yeah.
You're gonna be the office peon no matter where you go.
Yeah.
That's your bottom of the food chain, no matter where you start.
Even if your family has a business, you should start at the bottom.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
Like, you should be the peon, no matter what. Like,
not only that, you should if it's your family's business, you should be the best employee they have.
Yeah, well, and unfortunately,
because it's your business.
That doesn't always happen.
No.
And again, a whole other conversation. But do you think, with that being said, like in 2022, is there a strategy for parents to help teach their kids, the value of manning the fuck up, in the sense of, like, it's okay to come home, but do you set a hard out date? Do you say, okay, you don't have to pay rent if you're going to save XYZ amount of dollars? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, that to me is the biggest kind of question mark with all of this, because it becomes very easy to stay at home, especially if you're lucky enough to have parents that have a nice enough sized home where you don't feel like the confinement, right? Like the pressure. Maybe you have your own door to get in and out, or you have an in-law apartment or something like that. So it's almost like you're living in a studio, right? Where's the incentive to really learn to adult, like to make a dollar stretch, to understand that pressure of, like, okay, if I want to live this lifestyle, I need to either ask for overtime, or I need to be bettering myself. I need to be reinvesting in myself. I need to be finding ways to make extra money. Like, where does that come from? Because we hear a lot of complaining right now about, entitled kids and lazy kids and people with no concept of, money or what it takes to actually succeed and make it. Yeah, but then you have this on Twitter, and every parent, Len, was like you. Like, it was an overwhelming 90% of people like, my kids can come home anytime. The door is always open, even if I have to struggle.
Listen, it's one thing if you have a kid that just doesn't want to do something. I don't believe you should, just support them forever. That goes without saying. And Nick flexed on me when he was 18 years old. I'm like, look. You live in my house. You live by my rules. You're welcome to go get your own place. You're welcome to go be a man.
Yeah.
But if you're going to stay in my house, you're going to live by my rules. Period. So that was one thing. And he kind of bounced in and out of school. It wasn't for him, and I get that. But he worked for our company. So, he was doing something. I think if your child is making an effort to better themselves, supporting them is one thing. Yeah. If they're not making any effort, which, is going along a lot with society today with these kids, is they feel like they're entitled. I've had this conversation. When I needed more money, I asked my boss for more hours. I didn't ask my boss for more money. I'm like, hey, can we work 50 hours this week? It's, and that's really what's going on, is we're losing that.
Well, to your point. So again, it was mainly parents that were commenting. Again, if you're, scrolling through this conversation on the ManTFup podcast, we're talking today about, grown children moving home, which, let me tell you, is not a rarity.
Some of them never move out, by the way.
No, but there are also some that low key own their parents' homes. You know what I mean? Like, have taken over the mortgage payments. They live in the and you never know that, right? So you're like, oh, this kid lives in. No, he owns his parents' home. And he's kind of not letting them, but what I'm saying?
Taking care of his parents.
You never know. There's a lot of different dynamics, but a lot of people got.
We just had it right now. I thought you lived with your mom.
Did you really think
I thought your mom. I literally thought it was your mom's apartment and you moved into it.
No. My mother retired and was like, I'm not going through these snowstorms anymore. Clear out your second bedroom.
As much as we've talked, that's
funny.
That's what I thought.
No. My mom lives with me, and like I said, that was a scary thing when I lost my job. That was a scary thing, because there's that pressure that comes where it's like,
now you're taking care of somebody.
You're 1,000%, and it was like, what? And I don't ever want her to have to this is a time in her life. Like, my mother is a worker bee. Like, if I got a work ethic, I got it from, like, this is a woman who, has probably had 2 jobs in her whole life. And, one was working for an airline that she loved until that airline went out of business. And it was either move to Houston, if you want to stay with the company, or do something else. And she was like, okay, I'm not moving to Houston. And then she worked for my family's business for the next 25 years and was the person that the alarm company would call at 3:00 in the morning and was there 7 days a week. And you know, family businesses are incredible, but that's a whole, again, we could do a whole podcast on that dynamic because it is very difficult to work with people that you are related to.
Yes.
Like anytime that there's money involved. But, you know, again, when I lost my job, that was scary because I want my mother to be able to enjoy the everyday that she has, and she has plenty of years left, trust me. But because she did so much for me to this point, you know, and that was the other thing. It was like when I could pay for my lifestyle on my own, that was such an empowering feeling. And it was funny because I had a co-host, Lenny, shout out to Kelvin, who was living at home with his, you know, he had gone away to college. He went to UF. When he came back, he moved back in with his parents, and he was absolutely miserable because he's, you know, a member of the LGBTQ community, and he came from a very, you know, Hispanic family, and so he couldn't really be his authentic self. And I remember watching him deal with this, but his whole thing was like, you know, he was raised very much like some of the people on our team where you save money to buy a home. Like that was a thing. Like when he was growing up, right? Like you live at home so that you can save your money so that when you leave, you're not paying somebody else's mortgage, you're paying your own, right? Like his parents did not believe in renting. But I was kind of like, you know, you have to weigh out the pros and the cons. Like not being who you are, not being happy where you live. If you get to a point, you know, it's time to go. If you can support yourself, which he was finally at that place, he could. You know, so unfortunately he didn't leave home and buy a house like his parents would have loved. But he left home and got to live his authentic self. And he was, you know, so much happier and it was much better. But it was like, I remember looking at him like, Kelvin, you have the means to leave. Why are you still there? Like, it's time to adult. You're 28 years old. You know, you're not living at home because you don't have a job that pays the bills. You can pay the bill. You're stacking. I understood all of it, but I was like, you're not happy. Like, it's time to go. So when he was like actually ready to, but he has 2 roommates. Like he lives with his partner and then one of their best friends. You know, so back to your point, it is not a one person economy. Yeah, not at all. And they have a great time. But it was kind of like, you know, depending on how you were raised. So is that how you're raising your kids?
Yeah, it's, you know, raising kids is so fucking difficult. It changes daily. And we've talked about all the outside influences and all the things. And, you know, every parent wants to give their kids what they didn't have. You know, they want to give them a lifestyle better than what they felt, no matter what their lifestyle was growing up.
Because like you said, you didn't, I mean, you weren't struggling.
No, I wasn't.
Give your kids more than what you had is now you're giving your kids.
You're giving your kids, you know, a lot. Teaching them, you know, I always say Nick was our experiment and Miranda and Joey are, you know, going to be the results of that experiment, you know, which is true because, you know, we had Nick when we were younger. And things were different, and it was up and coming. And, you know, Miranda and Joey haven't seen as much of a struggle. You know, they were born into a beautiful house and whatever else. You know, Nick we owned a duplex, and my brother lived in one side, and I lived in the other. And that was where Nick grew up, you know. But he also had the advantage of my mother. He got to see my mother a lot. And, you know, we would just, you know, that's also support from family, mother, dad, whatever, grandparents. That was a part of that. But I don't really think I spoil. You know, people say, oh, you give him everything. Yeah, I know. But he has responsibilities. You know, his job is school. And if you don't do good in school, you got a problem.
You're talking about Joey. You're talking about
talking about Nick. Oh. All of them.
Oh, okay.
Any of my kids. Their job, to me, is school. And they have to go to work every day.
What would Nick do, though, tomorrow? And again, I feel like Nick, I hope he does not watch this because we talk about
He does. And we've had it out about it, too.
We talk about Nick at least once every other podcast.
Yes.
No, but like, so tomorrow, just because, it's because he is the closest one to being at that place where it's, you know, man up or shut up. Like, you know what I mean? Like in that space. If this closed down tomorrow, if you were just like, listen, I'm shutting all of this down, I'm shutting the pharmacy, because, I mean, he works for you.
Yes.
What would he do?
I have no fucking idea. I have no idea. And it's difficult for kids to understand today what they actually have until they're out on their own. So, you know, some of these kids that are, that are out and don't have that fallback thing and have to hustle and grind to get what they get, I can appreciate that. I can appreciate that a lot. I've tried to make my kids understand that you have to, but they don't. They don't, because it's hard to, my whole philosophy on raising kids is, they mimic what they see. You can tell them till you're blue in the face. You can't tell them don't drink and then you drink. It's just not that they learn from what you do, not from what you tell them.
We're definitely conditioned.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that's the way it goes. So, I don't understand why Nick doesn't have my work ethic or why he doesn't understand it. But I do think it's a lot of the social media and a lot of this, you see a lot of this, know your self-worth. Okay, I get it. You want to know your self-worth, your value. Don't let people undervalue you.
But what is your value?
Yeah, but see, that's the problem. They don't understand that. They make up their value in their head. It's like I have a car that's worth $5,000, but I think it's worth $15,000. So that's what it's worth. That's not fact. No. That's not fact, and that's not reality. It's, there's an old saying, it's only worth what someone will buy it for you. Yeah. So it's the same thing with people. Your only value is what someone's willing to pay you for said task. Yeah. So if there's 1,000 people out there that'll do it for half of what you will, that's what you're worth. And, and these kids don't understand that. Yeah. Because of that it's that empowerment thing, which is damaging to the other end of the spectrum, which is you have to be an adult and you have to learn and you have to climb the ladder. You don't deserve to be at the top rung from day one. You have to earn it. Yeah. And so it's a little strange. I mean, Nick still sees me work, I get up at 5 a.m. It's crazy. But I do. I didn't always do that, but I started adapting that. The more I learned about business and the more I learned, I started adapting the early morning thing.
And right.
It's helping me.
What is it? There's a name of. There's a book, isn't it? Like the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People or something like that.
There's. I mean, every successful person will tell you their morning routine, and that's that you come.
But it's like Oprah, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos. It's like a bunch of these industry leaders, and they all are, they 7 hours of sleep, and it's up at 4:30.
Some of them take it to extremes, like what's his name from Apple?
Not Steve Jobs.
Yeah, Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs would wear the same outfit every day. And other people do it too. They don't. I'm not using any of my brain power on what I'm dressing in. White shirt, white pants, and I do that to some extreme. I wear jeans and sneakers, but I like to at least match.
Yes, I've watched you change your shoes in the car.
Yes,
so that it goes better with
yes,
you
have to. You have to.
You have to. You coordinate.
Yeah. You have to. I'm checking in this weekend. I'm gonna have 10 pairs of sneakers with me. Okay. You
gotta flex for the fancy folks.
Yeah. I'm bringing out the good sneaks this weekend. We're bringing out the kicks I never wore.
No, I think that when I see these conversations, though, Lenny, it goes back because I don't have kids, and I know that I was raised, with privileged circumstances. But my mother and I were talking about it recently, and I was like, but it wasn't because I was necessarily financially privileged. Do you understand? Like when I talk about I was traveling the world when I was 4 years old.
You just didn't have to worry. You didn't see. Well, you didn't see that. You always had what you wanted to eat.
But it was also different. Like when I say that, when I talk about my life, people are like, you were literally in Europe when you were 4. Like, yeah, my stepdad and my mom both worked I flew on past benefits until I was 26. I used to literally, when I was in college, call Continental Airlines and be like, hey, is there space available? And can you make sure it's in first class? Like, I was an asshole. I was a whole ass and had no idea that the tickets I was booking at 2 a.m. so I could go meet my mother in New York for, a Red Sox-Yankees game was really a $6,000 plane ticket. Yeah. Like, I remember the first time when I no longer had benefits and I had to sit in coach and I was like, the seats are so small, the kids are so loud, I hate it back here. I was on Southwest lining up in my little B group, and I was like, what is this, Mom? But
this is reality.
But the thing is, my mother was never phased by it. Like, my mom is the best bargain shopper on the planet. I am not. So to your point, there's things that you get from your parents. There's things that you.
My kids won't understand till they're older that we've made a lot of sacrifices to get them in private school, to keep them in private school. You know, I mean, we don't go on family vacations every year, you know, and spend $20,000 on a vacation.
You spent it on tuition.
Yes, that's my priority, is getting them, you know, in a place that I feel is good for them. So they don't see those sacrifices. They just see, oh, you know, we got a new car and I go to private school, and that,
they complain that you don't go on vacation?
Not so much. I mean, we do little weekends here. We would occasionally, you know, we'll go to the Keys for the weekend, whatever. We do little things, but not like this grandiose travel.
You're not going to Aspen.
No,
for,
I mean,
you know, 10
it's
days
funny because the school has a week off that's called Ski Week in February. So everyone can go skiing. So, you know, when you have kids that go to a bougie school and then Ski Week comes around and they're sitting at home with none of their friends because they're all at Ski Week, you know, but they don't really understand it till it. I don't even think Nick really understands the sacrifice that parents make.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to understand how much work your mom did and how much of that was because of you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like your parents might have taken a different path if they weren't raising
1,000%
this child. So, you know, I'm very for supporting your kids. I'm not.
When does it get to the point where it crosses a line from support to enabling, where it goes from being supportive to actually
don't have
crippling?
To do anything.
Do you know what I'm saying? Because I think that we're seeing
the
negative effects of overindulging your children. You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't know how you walk that back. Like one of the kids that commented, so like I told you in this feed on Twitter, it was an overwhelming amount of parents who feel exactly as you do. They even have like little things on their front door that, you know, welcome home, you know what I mean? But like somebody that is clearly younger said, as someone who lived with my parents as an adult, don't charge your children rent. Whether you mean it or not, you're telling your kid that your relationship is transactional. I know it sounds like teaching responsibility, but trust me, your kids understand that money runs the world. And like, to me, I want to slap this person.
Yes.
Like, I want to slap you. You know what I mean?
Concept.
Because, and I don't know how old you are, but he's saying as a person who lived with my child, you should be, I'm sorry, and I guarantee you, if somebody watched, they'll probably want me to get dragged. You should be embarrassed.
Yes.
If as an adult, you have to move back home, and then B, just don't want it, like not that it's an embarrassment, because sometimes you do it for smart reasons. We saw a lot of people do it during the pandemic to go home to make sure that they were with their parents just in case something went left or because their jobs went remote and they could. And it was like, you know what? I'd rather be safe than sorry. Let's all be together. That way, if something goes left, it's not your.
And you know, what's the circumstance? I mean, did the cost go up on them living? And a lot of people are very money oriented. You know, there are a lot of people who, there's a lot of people who are very different than me and say, hey, you know, you're a grown man, get out on the street. If you're gonna, you could come live here. I'll charge you less than it's going to cost you out there, but I'm going to charge you. I mean, for me,
anything is going to be less.
If my kid had a job and wanted to come back home just to save a little bit, I would say, give me, you know, X amount a week and you can stay here. And I would put it in an account for them, give it to them when they're done.
That's so funny because literally the comment under what I just read was, I disagree. My parents started charging me a minimum rent when I graduated high school. I didn't choose college and I was working. I think it did teach me responsibility. Then years later, they gave it back to me when I moved out. I didn't know, but they'd been saving it for me.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes me want to cry. Like, no, but that to me is incredible. But no matter what, it's always going to, and especially if you're in a position where you can. Like, I think that's different. But no matter what, costs have gone up for everybody. And depending on your age, if your parents are still working or if they're retired and on a budget and you go home, that's an imposition. Costs have gone up. So you should feel like, hey, I don't have, obviously I don't have enough to live on my own, but I'll give whatever the difference is in the electricity or whatever the difference is in groceries or let me help with something. And then if they can save it for you, how incredible is that? Now you get out, you got a little bump.
I think that there's probably more to that issue than them just charging him rent. That butthurt doesn't just come from charging rent. It's just, I hate to tell you that, there's a, I mean, you don't know the underlying circumstances. That kid could just be an asshole.
100.
There's plenty of them.
Like I said, when my aunt used to go back to my grandmother, she would cook for her. She bought incredible you know what I mean? So it was never like.
Listen, I grew up. Me and my brother are polar opposites. Mm-hmm. We have a different father, same mother. I grew up with my mom, lived with her. He moved out. He got married the day he turned, 5 days after he turned 18, he got married, moved out. And he's always just worked. I mean, he's just a working guy. Mm-hmm. No aspirations, always had a budget. This is how much I make a week. This is my budget. This is this. This is this. So, like, if he went to my mother and said, hey, I want to buy a new truck. Can I borrow, $3,000? She would be like, well, how are you going to pay me back? Mm-hmm. And can you pay me back this much a week out of your budget? And that was his thing with my mother. Mm-hmm. Now, me, I was always a hustler. And I would go to my mom and say, hey, listen, I need to buy a piece of property. I need the money right now. I'm closing on the fucking deal right now. I need it. Mm-hmm. And she'd give me $25,000. Yep. And she wouldn't even ask me when it's going to come back. And that was the relationship I had with my mother. Yeah. So it's a lot of, it's a lot of, on her deathbed, she said, promise me you'll take care of your brother. He's always got a place to live. That was her dying wish because she knows if I make her a promise, I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. And people are different. Even kids are different with their parents and their parents treat the kids, my mom loved both of us the same amount, but she recognized that we were two different people. Do you know what I mean?
But and I think that,
gave us a little.
I think that that's a very special quality that your mother had because I think if you were to talk to a lot of, I think that that's a blessing when you have a parent that does that. Because I think some parents, again, were raised by parents who this is just what parenting looks like, right? Like it doesn't matter. It's like sports coaches. The best coaches understand that every player is different and you can what the fuck some players in front of the whole team and it's going to invigorate them and you do that to another kid and it's going to destroy his ego forever, right? So a great coach understands that. And then some coaches don't care. Yeah. Some coaches are, it's my way or the highway. And I think some parents are that way too. Some parents are just like, hey, this is what parenting looks like or, looked like when I was growing up. So this is what I'm going to do now. And then you have other people that are like your mom. And that's incredible because she probably got the most out of her relationship with both of her kids. And it also taught you to tailor your parenting. Some kids need you to be on top of them every minute of every day, right? Yes. And then other kids are like, that it's stifling and it's suffocating and you can see like, okay, you're going to flourish if I back up a little bit and let you make your own mistakes.
Not every kid is a hustler. That goes without saying. I mean, Nick is. He just doesn't have, he hasn't developed the work ethic to go along with his brain. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you want to hustle? That means 70 hours a week. That means you never turn it off. That means every person you meet, you have to go, hey, we can maybe do this. You have to have that mentality always. Mm-hmm. A lot of people talk about luck and opportunity. It's not luck and opportunity. Mm-hmm. It's, work gets you the opportunity 10% to make your own luck. Perspiration. It is what it is. So, but I'll give you a good example. A month ago, I took my 5-gallon jug of change and I put it on the dining room table and I said, here, you and Miranda, count all this, I love counting change. roll it up, and you guys can split it and you each get a bank account. Now, both bank accounts started with $750, roughly. Joey's bank account is now $1,500.
He's selling.
In 3 weeks.
Yeah.
He's buying and selling sneakers. Mm-hmm. Miranda's is $690,
Yeah.
So Joey's 13 years old, and he's got the hustle. Mm-hmm. He's got the hustle, and he's learning more from me than he looks to me more than Nick does. But he's still a kid, and he still has his own thing. Nick was buying and selling sneakers when he was a kid too, but not as effectively as Joey is doing. Joey's done baseball or football cards or baseball cards, and he's done it. And he's, I look at his account and I'm like, shit, he put more money in. which is great.
You love that. Yeah.
But a lot of kids aren't hustlers. My daughter has tried to do some things. She started, she's like, I want to make masks when this whole thing started, and we made her a Shopify store and everything. And I got her a sewing machine and she was sewing masks and it was great. She loves to sew. She loves to create, but she doesn't love to follow through. She learned something. She knows how to sew. I don't know if I should. She made this great handbag out of an old pair of jeans. She just loves to sew. Very creative. And then she's done with it. She loves to bake. She learned how to bake. She's good at it. She mastered it. She's done. So Joey, on the other hand, looks at the. End up with Joey looks at the dollars. Joey looks at the dollars, and Miranda looks at the. She's
the creative. And
she's the creative.
Yeah.
The two of them together are going to make a great team. At some point, but they both have the hustle, just in different ways.
Yeah.
But some people are just made to work. They go, they learn, they get their job. That's all they're ever going to do in their life. And unfortunately, today's kids can't come out of college, can't come out of high school, can't come out of anything and support themselves.
Yeah. Well, I mean, although I kind of disagree in the sense of back to our college conversation and talking about trade schools and vocational schools and things of that nature, like you can come out and especially in South Florida in construction and make great money. I mean, FIU had an entire program for people where we don't want to see your papers, nothing. We're gonna train $60 an hour. Like it was insane. Like $60,000 a year was the base salary for people that had, and they were teaching you everything. They were like giving you kind of like a crash course in GC life. Like so they were teaching you electrical, plumbing, construction, blah, 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 so that you could go on any job site. I didn't realize that though, because like a lot of these like high rises, it's kind of just like a big crew shows up, and it's like you need to know.
Yeah,
a little bit about a lot of stuff in order to,
Yeah, and that's what separates good contractors
100%.
I mean, I know a lot of contractors or a lot of people who do this, home remodeling that don't know what their subcontractors are doing. Yeah. So if the subcontractor's doing something totally fucked up, you don't even recognize it. You just close it up.
But but when I think about it, being in that line of work, it's work.
Oh, yeah.
That is manual labor every day.
I don't care what you do. It's work.
Well, no, but you understand I think that's where the scariest part is. Like, you can tell a kid you can make $150,000 a year being a plumber. Easy, right? Like that, it is what it is, especially in a place like South Florida where there's constantly new construction and old construction, which is really the moneymaker, right? But when you tell them what that entails every day, like we're getting away from, the understanding that America was really built on that blue collar, I hate to say backbreaking, but even when I look, who I look at every day? The roofers. Like, when it's summertime and you see somebody laying like tar down on a roof and I'm like, yo, y'all are the real MVP.
Yeah, so this is also a big thing. Working with your hands is a big, manual labor. My one of Nick's friends, we got him a job. He was out of work. We got him a job at my friend's construction company, and he lasted about 4 hours. Never even went and picked up his paycheck. and this is somebody he knew. It was like, really?
But again,
this
all you realize it's all a cycle though. It started off with a conversation about if your grown child needs to move home, right? Because here's the deal. There's always, I feel like in this country, you always have an opportunity, right? But unfortunately, you get to this place where you think things are beneath you. But if you always have a fallback, right, you can kind of exist. But what I'm saying is when your parents open the doors and are like, hey, come on. And I'm not blaming parents because my mother would do this. Like, trust me, I get it. But that kid could have made great, you understand, like, you're out of work. If you don't have another skill set, like, I get the like you said, what's your value? And it's nothing right now. What
Zero.
Can you do? But you can go out and you can start at the bottom, and who knows, you could end up owning, like, what was his name? Huizinga. Started with nothing and ended up owned everything. Yeah. Every waste management, but he was a garbage, you start as a garbage man and God knows what that can turn into.
It's it's not that you start, you always have to start. You always have to know what the basis is, I mean, this dynamism. We started the company. I didn't start advertising for almost a year and a half because I didn't understand all the aspects of the store and this and then, and when you advertise, it was just, there was a lot to learn. I sat and educated myself for a year and a half before we actually went anywhere. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was money better spent than necessarily just starting to throw ads out there, which we did. We experimented with it, but
if
anything you do, you got to learn.
Children were faced what you were faced with. Where would they be? If Nick had been you in 2008 when the market crashed and the rug got completely pulled out from underneath you, and I hate to use him, but think about anybody that who's younger, or even people that work for you now.
I think all my kids would survive.
Home?
They might come home. And listen, when I say come home, I don't mean come home and you're going to be here forever. I mean, come home, get on your feet, decide what you want to do, and get the fuck back out.
Yeah.
And it's difficult, but I think my kids might have the skills to survive without.
Would they go later? Do you understand what I'm saying? Would they go?
Joey would. I think Miranda would work. Miranda wants to get a job now.
To be a bartender, and she'd probably make great. You know what I mean? She would use what she's got.
She's got the hustle. She wants to work now. She wants to get a job this summer. You don't
want her to?
A camp counselor at the school maybe, but nothing more.
But why?
Because
Lenny, you were working and making money when you were 12.
It doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. It's more the element of what you find in places where you have $9 an hour jobs. It's not necessary.
It doesn't have to be not. Hello, you pay
$10 an hour, $12 an hour,
Nick.
Whatever it is.
Let Miranda come in and we're.
Oh yeah, I already joke with both of them. You guys are going to be really fucking pissed when Miranda's running the companies, because it ain't going to be you two. I'm
not trying to be. I'm just. But
but it's true.
But I love that. When you're talking about putting the jar down and letting them count. I used to do that on weekend mornings when I didn't have figure skating or whatever. I've always had a piggy bank. I used to love to count my change. I would roll it, take it. I loved that. I saved all my change, and then when my favorite thing about working for my family's business was counting the money. Don't let it be Christmas. What? And I got to count all the from our Forest store. Oh my God! And balancing a ledger, and I would take so much pride when my drawer, especially when I worked the register, and my drawer was over 5 cents because people, if something was $20.99, Massachusetts, we don't have tax on a lot of stuff. Tax is different, but they don't tax alcohol.
They tax income.
So it'd be $20.99. But that's why they don't tax anything else. They don't tax clothes. They don't tax food. They don't tax your booze. But they definitely tax your income multiple times. State, federal, all of it. But no, I loved the process of counting money. I always I liked being around business and balancing. So I don't know. I just feel
I think that's something that, back to the experiment and the practicing. My younger ones are getting more of a feel for money than Nick did.
I liked working though. That was I think I was dusting bottles for a penny a bottle when I was 7 or 8, and then I had a milk crate and I would stand and I would just love to bag. I don't know. It was just fun for me. So I loved that but I also can't do things I don't love. That's my bigger issue. I've had jobs that I've been at for 3 weeks, Mangoes on South Beach. I was I'm not a stripper. I can't. It's cool watching girls cry and be torn down and but most of the people that worked there at the time didn't have papers, so they could treat them any way they wanted to, 12-hour days. And I was I'm in college. I live in Kendall right now. I don't need this. I'm leaving here at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm almost crashing on the turnpike. I'm good. So if I don't love something, I don't, but I also know because when I love it, I'll give it my all. You know what I mean? So that's something that but I learned that early on, having multiple jobs, and
part of that, that's a problem also, because, sometimes not having the advantages that me and you might have had, you have to do things that you don't love to get to the things that you do.
Yeah.
Which is, again, I get it. You don't like working in this company. I understand. But it's a job. It's paying your bills. Now you can go out and do what you want to do
sure.
for that other 30 or 40 hours a week that you're awake
Well, no, we talked about that with Brittany when we said, talking about that, do what you love, like, is coming from a place of privilege, right?
Yes.
Because there are some people who don't have an option. They've got to do whatever they've got to do to put food on the table and a roof over their head.
Yeah.
It's why people continue to go into coal mines. You know what I'm saying? If that's all you know and that's what you do, and black lung, bring it on. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, if it was good enough for my dad and it was good enough for my granddad and it's taking care of my kids.
The only thing they do have is they have the advantage to better themselves. So, if you're in a shitty job that you don't like, do it as good as you can. Make yourself stick out. But then take a couple hours a day after work to start working towards what you want. Mm-hmm. And people don't do that. They get in this routine and they get stuck.
They do.
They get very stuck, and then they're miserable their whole entire life.
They are. But again, I think it has to... I'm going to partially blame the parents. I'm going to bring this back full circle only just because we're getting ready to wrap it up. But it's like when we talk about, manning up, when we talk about putting on your big boy or your big girl pants, when we talk about getting it done, less talk, more do, a lot of that starts, especially when we're talking about a generation that is constantly being bitched about for not having a work ethic, for being deluded, for, not having accountability. I think part of that starts, and parents have to start taking some accountability for that. Like, wanting to do for your children is one thing, but when does the wanting to do cross over to enabling and then beyond that actually to becoming a hindrance or a disservice?
Yeah, there's a lot of that, but we are no longer the sole influence on our children. So I think it's more of a parent's
Instagram ain't taking them back, though, when they lose their job. You know what I'm saying?
But
they're not moving in with somebody on their feed. They're moving in with you.
Giving them that false sense of worth. It's giving people that false sense of worth. Great. You feel like you're worth that much? No problem. Go get somebody to pay you that. Mm-hmm. Okay? You're gonna knock on a lot of fucking doors before somebody's gonna give you what you want. Mm-hmm. So you have to...
But as a parent, Lenny, it also falls on you to remind them, you're not worth that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, financially.
Absolutely.
Like, as my child, you're invaluable. I can't put a price on you.
It's definitely the parents. And, everything I've done in my life, I don't regret. I'm sitting here. I've made my bones, and I can't really blame my parents for anything. I mean, everybody's fucked up. So, it is what it is. At some point, you need to realize in your life, which I have, and, that this shit's not my parents' fault. It might be my parents' fault that I think this way or do this, but it's not their fault that I'm sitting where I'm sitting. It's my fault because I'm an adult.
I was about to say, not only that, Lenny, you're also self-aware. I think there's things that you'll do as a child or as a young adult that hopefully by the time you hit 40 and above, you look back on and you realize,
Good luck.
That was on me. Well, no, that's self-awareness and growth. And if people are engaging you in those conversations, and if, I think that your kids will be in that situation, Len, because you're constantly doing things to better yourself. And I think that them seeing that, and it's, whether it's therapy or it's reading or it's making...
They just think I'm severely ADHD.
Well, you are, but so are a lot of people. I mean, I just think that that's the conversation, and it's not like, you can love your kids. My mother thinks I'm limitless. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But I don't think that she's ever given me a false sense of grandeur. You know what I'm saying? Like, she supports me in whatever I do, but she's not the person telling me like, oh, baby, you're a better actress than Angelina Jolie. Like, no, like she's not out there pumping my head. If she knows but she knows if I'm passionate about it, she knows that I have the ability to do it.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
You can. I totally believe that. Anyone can do anything they put their mind to. Mm-hmm. I believe that.
But on the flip side of it, it's like she'll look at me like, if a package gets dropped off at the door from Amazon, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? What are you doing? You don't have a job right now, like a real job. Like, are you insane? I'm like, shut up. Like, I don't want to hear it. Daily. You live with me.
I trip over those packages every day.
Yes. But but she definitely, I never went with that. Like, I have my own issues because of her overindulge, you know what I mean? Like this always. It wasn't that she didn't tell me no, but I'm self-aware enough at this point to realize it, and she did it it always comes from a good place. I'm not blaming, like, this is not a negative thing that that you incredible parents have, but it's like, there comes a point in time, like, for me, I was a figure skater, and then when I got to high school, I wanted to swim. Like, there were a bunch of things, but I also got mono, and then I was having a rough time, and I honestly think
that's a kissing disease.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I didn't get it from kissing anybody, though.
Okay.
But at least I don't think I did. But my point is, like, I quit skating. She had put a lot of money into it. I kind of just walked away from it. I became a cheerleader. I wanted to do high school. And now I look back on it and I'm like, I quit that. And that does something. Like, there's times I think where for parents, sometimes you have to make your kids stick with something just to teach them follow through, just to teach them to see something.
I've done that. I've done that with Miranda on the theater stuff. She's like, I don't want to do theater next year. I'm like,
well, if you didn't get a part, like, and you never know where that comes from.
And it's funny because she, at 15 years old, is just she's like, because Rachel's like, why does that girl always get the best parts? And Miranda's like, it's because they want the best show possible. I mean, if the best actor is getting the best part, it's because they deserve it. And she's becoming aware of that. For a while she was like, oh, which is at this school could be part of it, but who knows? But she's stuck to it, and she's done different aspects of it. She just co-directed one of the plays, and she's been in every play, I think.
That's the real money anyway, Miranda.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes. Behind the scenes. That's the real
So, she enjoys it, and she loves it, and I've always pushed her, and Joey loves sports, and that's his thing. I don't want to get up at 6 a.m. Well, you got to get up at 6 a.m.
Yeah, anybody
it is what it is.
Yeah.
You want to play basketball and football, you have to put in the time. Because if you don't put in the time, you're not going to be the best player, and you're going to be pissed at yourself when you don't make these plays.
Yeah.
The only way to do it is put in the time.
That's never changing.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Snowstorms, when you're making millions of dollars a year, and they'll still fine your ass for being late. So, I mean, that's just accountability. But again, that's a whole process that they're teaching and educating them.
It's a hard job.
Yeah. 100%.
I mean, you get paid well for it, but it's a hard job.
Not everybody is cut out to do it. And sometimes it's the difference between getting up and not getting up.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That makes the difference between who gets the job and who doesn't. But I think as we wrap this conversation up, I think I want to task parents to, I don't want to say demand more, because nobody can tell you how to raise your kids. But, like, in this situation, should your grown-ass child need to move home? Obviously, if you have the means to provide them with a roof over their head, you're not going to tell them no. But either set a hard out, or the requiring a little bit of rent that you're putting aside for them anyway.
Yeah, or even if you need the money and you're giving them,
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
It's okay.
It's okay. I mean, if you say, look, the groceries, this, that, just contribute your share. That's okay too.
Because that learning how to man up starts with you guys. Like, to go back to when like you said earlier, you're conditioned. We only see, so your children have no excuse because they've watched you man up many times.
Do you have any friends that have kids?
Yeah.
So you've seen, do you have friends that have multiple kids?
Yeah.
So you remember when they had their first kid?
Yeah.
They were like,
they have her parents. Yeah. And by the third one, it's like Binky.
Yeah. It's just, it's been a running joke since Joey could understand what we were saying to him. We're like, you're the third kid. Nobody gives two shits about you. Yeah. Jump on the counter. You'll be fine.
And fall off.
It doesn't matter.
We'll get a cast. It's okay. Like, you'll be fine.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
And it's true. So it's one of those things. As a parent, as you grow, if you only have one child, you're a different parent.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm definitely an only child, but it's just, be conscious of, when providing turns into enabling and then turns into crippling your child. It might, and the thing is, that can be painful for parents. You will never want to watch your children struggle, and that, I think, is part of the problem. Like, again, when it comes back to accountability, but you have to, like, you hear the stories about super wealthy people all the time where it's like, somebody was tarnishing the family legacy, and so they had to cut them. There's a fine line. Yeah. I mean, in my thing, I want to see my kids fail, because I know from failure rises success. But it's still, as a parent, is difficult to
I don't wish them that they'll fail, but
I know a way that you could speed that up real quick.
they're going to.
I'm just saying.
I want to see them grow faster than they're doing it. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. Okay, well, can we at least agree on the fact that parents have to contribute to the, manning up of their children?
Absolutely.
In some ways.
Yes, man the fuck up parents, man your kids up.
We can't continue to blame everything on.
And listen, if there's any dragging to be done in this episode, you feel free to drag me, but it means nothing. So, waste your breath if you feel like it. Now, Kimmy, on the other hand, you can just email her at KimmyB at ManTFupTV.com.
We're always here for a drag. Shout out to all my grown-ass folks that have had to move back in with their parents. Listen, it is always darkest before the sun rises, all right? Like, you're going to make it through. Make sure you show them love. Make sure you're appreciative if you did have to go back home. And be grateful for the fact that you could, because there are a lot of people that do not have the option to fail and go home.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Be thankful for that. And guys, don't worry about it, because the girls are used to guys living at home now with their parents. God, they don't give two shits.
Again, that's a whole other ManTFup episode. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, share absolutely everywhere. That means Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Apple, Spotify, Google, Buzzsprout, Pandora, iHeart. I mean, no, we're really everywhere. There's absolutely zero excuse. And, of course, you can always check out ManTFupTV.com.